So I just want to introduce myself. I'm Nina, and with me is Rinky, our 007 of IT program management. And today we're going to talk about the background, the journey from Plan View to MS Project Online, and our keys to success. If you want to advance to slide 4.
Do you see the Santa Clara County slide?
No, not yet.
Issue.
There we go. There we go.
I'm not going to put it in landscape. There's some issue when I do that.
Okay, we can stick here. That's great. So Santa Clara County. I just want to give you a little bit of background about us, about the organization we serve and the business lines. So this is beautiful Santa Clara County, and this is home of one of California's famed 21 missions left by the Spaniards before California became a state. And in Santa Clara County, we have San Jose, one of the densest cities in the state. 50% of the population is within the city of San Jose. Now, Santa Clara County is most famous because it is Silicon Valley, the epicenter of technology, and it is quite wealthy because of the origin and proliferation of these companies, which you see here over the past decades. And it is also home to a few great universities, Stanford University, Santa Clara University, and San Jose State. And we are surrounded by a lot of talent, but the competition is still very fierce with all these career and work options for graduates. Of course, it's not home to the greatest California university, that's UC Berkeley, and that's across the bay. Go Bears. Next slide. All right, a little about the landscape. So the County of Santa Clara is the 3rd largest employer in Silicon Valley. Apple Incorporated in Cupertino is first with 25,000 employees, and Alphabet Incorporated and Google in Mountain View have 23,000 local employees. So that makes us 3rd with about 18,500 employees. Our IT department, about 800 strong employees, does its best to support the 800 major business capabilities across the agencies. These business capabilities are supported by approximately 1,300 enterprise level applications, 50,000 user devices across the landscape keeps us busy, and our service desk handles approximately 180,000 tickets a year. And yes, there is always a severe shortage of service desk employees to handle the volume, and we are hiring, and let me know if you're interested after the presentation. As we look at what's under all those business lines, we will see large scale investments into infrastructure to support all of this, and we are continually trying to move off-prem into the cloud, and that is an ongoing initiative that will probably never go away in our lifetime. We are now an organization that has consolidated over the past 3 years. We are a new organization, so we've consolidated in the past 3 years. In 2015, there were 300 people in the information technology department, and today there are 800 people. And with that, we inherited all the investments made over the past 20 to 30 years. So you can bet that we are focused on modernization and standardization at this stage in our existence. The 200 active projects reflect this effort, and I want to dive a little deeper into that portfolio right now. Next slide. So this is a snapshot of our project portfolio. It's large. There's 112 active projects, 28 approved projects, which means they have not yet started but are funded. 226 canceled, closed, completed, or placed on hold projects. And what I want you to understand here is that this portfolio is large because there was zero governance in the past. There were no evaluative indicators to filter the proposals appropriately, and now we are somewhat saddled with too many commitments and not enough resources. So a year ago, we couldn't have told you about this portfolio with this level of granularity because we didn't have the right kind of data to do this. We had to make some major changes over the past 18 months, and I want to discuss those with you before we talk about the implementation of our new tool. Next slide. So I want to quickly talk about where we were in winter 2019 pre-pandemic, 18 months ago, more or less. We were a centralized project management office with a huge portfolio, but the business lines we support, public safety and justice, think jail management and probation modernization efforts, financial and HR systems, think PeopleSoft and SAP, 3 hospitals, think Epic and hundreds of enhancements and integrations annually, social services, think software that supports benefits for marginalized or at-risk populations, foster children, veterans, lots of data, lots of integrations, and bespoke software. And a smattering of smaller offices within the chief executive officer's wing, think elections, legal software, and the coroner's office. So very distinct, vast, completely different business lines. So these directors, which are part of our organization and run these IT teams, have had no control over the project delivery teams because they were centralized. They were reliant on the enterprise PMO to balance resources and deploy project managers as needed across all of these business lines. This was an absolute recipe for failure, and mostly because we didn't possess the maturity required to do this, and there were too many business lines that required domain expertise. So couple that with zero governance to manage the intake, we said yes to everything. And to make it worse, our project delivery rate is low. We don't complete projects and we don't get efforts done. Rather, there was a lot of languishing and rollover of money happening. Oversight of the active portfolio was practically non-existent. So the culmination of all this amounted to a bloated portfolio where projects go to die. And that got us into trouble with everybody. Next slide. So obviously, now that we know all these things, what did we do? So we did a few things. First, we moved to a decentralized model. The project delivery teams went out to the directors that were closest to the business lines. Now the directors are responsible for project delivery. At the enterprise, we are responsible for governance. At the enterprise, we control governing all of the portfolio. We control the intake. We work with the architecture team to evaluate proposed solutions. We put forth the indicators by which to measure the projects and programs, and we control the funding and the flow of money. And we built the decision-making body, the IT Governance Committee. The CIO is the chair of that committee, and its membership is made up of 13 business leaders from across the county. And the big takeaways here is we centralize the governance, we centralize the data, we centralize the decision-making, but we decentralize the delivery. So those project teams now live with these IT directors in the business lines I mentioned earlier. Next slide. Finally, we developed a new strategic plan, and that has many of the elements that I spoke of earlier, and it's allowed us to stick with the work and formally evaluate how we were doing against our plan. Further, and this is most important as we kind of hone in on the implementation of the tool, it's tightened and aligned the portfolio to an actual strategy, meaning the indicators we score the proposals by are reflective of a larger strategy, and the active portfolio indicators allow us to maintain a healthy portfolio. So now I'm going to hand it off to Rinki Bhattacharya, one of our strongest and most capable on our team, and she will talk to you about the tool, MSPPM, which was fundamental to our journey, and the implementation was led by her. Over to you, Rinki.
Thank you, Nina. So I'm going to talk about our journey from the PlanView PPM tool to where we are today, which is the Microsoft Project Online. I'm going to talk about some challenges and how we approach this project. So what were some of our biggest challenges that we had to overcome in this project? One, and you'll see in more detail, we had a very short project timeline. We had a very limited project team, and we had very large number of stakeholders, as Nina just mentioned. Given that we have 18,000 plus employees within the county in each vertical, each one of them was a stakeholder in this project because end of the day, they own the projects that this new tool would help them manage. There were vertical specific challenges given how Santa Clara County has various agencies with varied objectives like health and hospital, public safety and justice. You can imagine the needs for public safety and justice and health and hospital are not the same. So they had to be met with a single tool. And on top of everything else, due to COVID, it was a completely virtual implementation. That said, what was the project approach? And as you can see in the bottom, the largest uplift was in the first 3 phases, which was the analysis and design, the build and validate, and the deployment, which was done over 19 weeks. So the key to the analysis and design phase was the detailed functional technical requirements, the design documentation, and the stakeholder review, making sure no one is missed, no requirements are missed. And of course, requirements are prioritized. And then the functional configuration requirements and the project schedule were key documents or key outputs of this phase. And then the build validation phase, yes, configuration of the PPM tool in the dev environment, validation sessions by a core team, and as needed configuration updates. So the core team worked side by side with the vendor, which was PROJILITY, to do the in-depth testing in dev environment before the users were involved. And the deployment, and I'll go into more detail about that. The deployment happened vertical by vertical. We did not do a big bang approach because we realized it would never work. If we got 200 PMs in a room and set them loose on an application, it would not work. So we did it vertical by vertical, and we did role-based training, which was also key. So based on the security groups we defined, the training was done based on the roles that we defined as well. And then transition and support, which was done over 10 weeks, which was very important, and I think which played a key role in our project success, is the staggered rollout, holding office hours, providing one-on-one help, providing huge amount of training material, recording all our trainings, posting everything on our intranet site, all of that helped. And of course, maintaining a configuration change log, which was key so that any change is documented and is traceable later. So what was the project overall timeline? As I mentioned earlier, it was a very short timeline, given the scope and the number of stakeholders involved. It was 7 months, literally, from the kickoff, which happened August 3rd, to the project completion, which was February 26th. It was 7-month timeline and included major holidays such as Thanksgiving and Christmas, when users were literally unavailable. So as you can see, the major phases or the major steps that we took was, and the outputs were the solution requirements document generation from the requirements gathering sessions, setting up the dev instance, validating the dev instance, and then moving into production. And then we started the phased rollout where we actually involved the users. And then we transitioned over to support from day one. We created our own internal support team, and we went through a whole ticketing process, and that was our transition. So what were the steps that we took per vertical to make sure we didn't miss anything? One is identifying project attributes. And first of all, as Nina mentioned, in PlanView, we weren't even sure what the active portfolio was. So the first step was to identify which projects we need to bring into the PPM tool. It was not really replacing PlanView because, as Nina mentioned, PlanView did not have any data, accurate data. So it was literally recreating these projects in Microsoft Project Online. So identifying projects, identifying project attributes, identifying resources. That was the biggest step. That was the first step that we did, and that took us the longest because most of these projects either had skeletal information in PlanView or incorrect information or did not even exist in PlanView before. Then the next step was the role-based training by vendor, which is PROJILITY. And that was very important because we had separate sessions for PMs, separate sessions for resource managers, separate sessions for executives, which were focused on their role. We had multiple sessions, and then we had sessions where the users could drop in if they missed something, if they had questions, etc. Then we helped the PMs create the project schedules in MPP format. As I said before, some of them were not familiar with Microsoft Project. So creating those schedules, as we all know, which is the backbone of the project, was the main step next. And then reviewing, updating projects that were imported into the PPM tool. And then transition over to support. So we repeated each of these steps for every single vertical until all verticals were live. And then we could say that the project was complete. So let's see some of the results of this implementation. As Nina mentioned before, in PlanView, we had no view into the active portfolio. We had no way of telling you how many active projects we had, what was on hold. We had no visibility before. But as part of this implementation, we also implemented Power BI reports and dashboards. And today, with one click of a button, we can look at our active portfolio. And as you can see, we have built these dashboards, which are live, which are updated. We have a data feed from our PPM tool into Power BI, which is refreshed every 2 hours. So with a click of a button, we are able to see what the active portfolio looks like. We have various slices and dices. We have program views. This is the Bridges program, which is, the largest TSS, our largest funded program that our IT department owns, and many critical projects, the PPM tool implementation being one, falls under this program. So we have created ways to group projects into programs and created views to see issues, risks, program health, as well as the details of the project itself. So we are also tracking the health trend of individual projects. You can see on the left-hand side who the project manager is, and by project, we can look at the percent complete, the start finish, what is the current status, and we can see overall health for a certain period of time. This report can be filtered by vertical. So this is another report that we have built. And of course, we have started rolling out resource management. Our largest vertical, health and hospital, has really taken up this assignment, and they are managing all the resources, all the project related work within the PPM tool. So we have built these reports where they're able to see by resource manager what the resources are assigned to, what is their capacity, what is their assignments down to the project level. And there are various slices and dices available of this report as well. So this is just one glimpse of the report. There are many others. There are many dashboards. There's a portfolio level view. There are many, many others that we have built. Today, the project reporting is out of Power BI. It's no longer PMs going off and creating random slide decks. We have moved away from that thanks to this implementation. So what were some of the keys to our success, or some takeaways that we can share and which may help others who are on a similar journey or planning a similar journey? Number one, we clearly defined scope. I think that was key, because initially when this project was kicked off, as you can imagine, with a county our size and with varying needs in various verticals, it was most important to make sure the scope is defined, clarified, and contained. Then, as I said before, the staggered rollout approach, we did not go big bang. I think if we had, we would not have succeeded. We did it vertical by vertical, even from the training to the requirements, everything was focused on each vertical. The training by roles was also key, because if it doesn't really relate to you and I train you on something, you will not remember, you would not pay attention. So that was very important, to define the roles and separate out the training instead of having everyone together at the same time. Then we held, as I said before, holding office hours by vertical. Specific hours for each vertical where a PM or anyone, any resource manager, anybody could just drop in and ask a question, because people sometimes do not speak up in larger groups. And then detailed project site with the training material, videos, documentation, and we are still keeping that updated. We are constantly adding material to it, and it's a huge source of information for us. And for any new PM joining the county, you can point them to this site for training. And of course, the project team being available for support round the clock. I think these were the keys to our success, and of course, the support of our vendor PROJILITY in this journey as well.